Good morning and good afternoon to everyone out there. Welcome to the Thirsty Thursday edition of The Rundown. I am your host, Craig DeLuz, and well, as I always say, or as we always say, I don't do this program by myself.
That's right. Not by ourselves because we couldn't by ourselves because there's just way too much to do, too much information to bring you. I am your co-host today. I am Mike Poworski, and it's great to be with you on this Thirsty Thursday edition of The Rundown.
So wait now, has your weekend, like, is it starting today or are we still like, weekend not starting till Friday thing?
My weekend starts Wednesday at noon, Craig. I told you this.
Wednesday at noon. Okay, good.
Wednesday at noon,
That
my
is
weekend starts.
that
Yeah.
is very good to hear. I'm so glad.
Yeah.
I'm so glad to hear that.
Yeah. Now I may still have to go to work Thursday and Friday, but the attitude and the rest of the stuff starts Wednesday at noon. So
The
don't ask me for
party,
anything.
the
Thursday and
party
Friday
has
work.
already
You ask me for
started.
something, you're not getting it.
The
Yeah,
party has already started.
exactly
Well,
right.
folks, let's just Oh, by the way, I just want to say special thank you to our sponsors. We have Gorilla Machining and we have Grid Defense, and they are going to be part of our Freedback Friday. Mike, you want to tell them what Freedback Friday is?
Yes. Feedback Friday is the live portion where you get to involve yourselves in everything that we're saying. You get to make comments. And then Freebie Friday is when we give away our sponsors' items from Gorilla and Grid. And so we just combined it to save time. We call it Feedback.
Bam, just like that, just like that. Now, all you have to do is you have to make sure you participate. That means, number one, you probably want to make sure that you like and subscribe. So make sure you
Like,
subscribe to us on YouTube. Make sure you like us on Facebook, and encourage your friends to do the same. And then tune in because, in order to win, you're going to have to watch because you got to be commenting. You got to have something to say and got to be good.
yep, you must be present to win. We'll be calling
Must
your
be.
number at the end of the program.
Exactly. So, folks, make sure you tune in. That's tomorrow, folks. Feedback Friday is tomorrow. So don't miss out.
Noon Eastern, and wherever else time that may be
Right. That's also 9 Pacific
for
for
whoever's out
those of
there.
you on the left coast.
Yep. 6 a.m. in Hawaii.
Behind enemy lines, the behind the Iron Curtain, I like to call the Sierras. All right, let's get into today's stories. We're always told how woke the folk over at CNN are, right? I mean, they're always talking about, evidently they are the moral compass of the world nowadays. Well, interestingly, there's a gentleman who has been writing for them. He's got like 54 different articles on CNN.com. He's a freelancer. He's a writer. But he's got like 54 different articles that he's written for CNN. Well, somehow someone came across his Twitter feed. And, well, let's just say that it wasn't exactly politically correct. Now, let's just mind you, we're not talking about the usual level of, non-wokeness. At least unless you consider, praising Hitler to be, standard non-wokeness. That's right. If you look here at his tweets, these are just an example. This is just an example of some of the tweets that this individual has had out there that are literally promoting his love of Hitler, and basically saying we need someone like Hitler now because Hitler knew how to handle the Jews. That's not me saying this. That's this guy saying this. And it's crazy because, well, once again, this guy has 54 different bylines with the CNN, which kind of, Mike, really kind of reveals exactly, where some of these folks over at CNN are.
Listen, Craig, first off, I mean, Hitler really wasn't all that bad, was he? I mean, I read somewhere that he liked dogs. I mean, so, he had that going for him.
Yeah. Okay. No.
This guy, how does this guy get past them? How do you get 54 bylines and nobody says, hey, maybe we should check his Twitter feed? How does that happen?
Because he's a person of color, and therefore he's not capable of being racist.
Well, I see that he has one of those Muslim names there, and honest to God, I thought it was a woman's name when I read it, and I'm not trying to make
It
fun. So now that you're saying
it is a Middle
I
Eastern
was a
name. I
little
don't know if it's
confused.
necessarily Muslim, but I will guarantee you there's probably more Muslims with that name than non-Muslims with that name.
Okay,
But I'll
so
give you that.
I apologize for those that may have the name and are not Muslim, but or it's a regional name. We could say
There
it's
you
a
go.
regional name. So
Yeah.
I thought that regional name was a woman's name, and I'm not trying to insult. So when you started the story saying he, I'm like, crap, did I read the wrong story?
See, there you go, Jan. Now you well, wait. Maybe I'm the one that's guilty of uh, gender. What's it
Did
called?
you
Gender
assume?
shaming. Did I presume his gender or her gender or their gender? Maybe.
Listen, I have no idea. Listen, it's just unfathomable to believe that somebody as deep as CNN, because we know how they'll go back into somebody's tweet from some comedian or some politician from 20 years ago and say you made an off-color remark and trying to ruin their lives. Yet they got a guy with 54 bylines from them, or girl with
Did
54
did
bylines from
Mike?
them.
Did you
That
just say off color?
did I say off-color? Yeah, off-color.
Off color?
No,
Isn't
that's not
that isn't
off-color.
that isn't that a racist term? Hold on. Let me woke up. Let me look at my woke
Look at your woke
dictionary
dictionary.
and see. Look. Okay. All right. All right. You threw the word color in there, and
Yeah,
so I just
yeah,
wanted to be careful. I want to make sure we weren't violating the woke. We didn't encourage the ire of the woke police.
yeah. No, I got you. I wouldn't listen to. You know what?
This is
There's actually
California, man. They could come busting through this door any minute. So
there's actually a laundromat here in town that got in trouble about a year ago because they have two big machines off on one side that say whites only on them, and people thought that meant only whites could use them, as opposed to those are
please
the
tell me
only
you're
machines
kidding.
we want bleach in. You know,
Please tell me you're kidding.
no, I'm not kidding. I'm not
Oh
kidding.
God.
Google it up. Google it up. Yeah, but
Oh,
you could put bleach in those machines and it wouldn't destroy them. They were extra special coatings or something like that. But whatever the reason is. Yeah, this guy. How's this guy still there? How's this guy or girl still there? You know,
well,
and
but
people don't understand the
right.
extent of the Muslim
Mm-hmm.
involvement with Hitler during World War II either. You know,
Well, no, they don't because they both groups shared a disliking of Jews. And
disliking. Yeah, now who's toning it down a little? Okay,
I'm trying to be politically look,
politically
look,
correct. Yeah, he killed 6 to 10 million of them. He disliked them. He disliked them. Yeah,
just a little
yeah.
bit.
I'd hate to get on his hate list. You know, but
I know, but the point is that they both believed in exterminating the Jewish people,
yeah,
and so it's not uncommon even till today for people to have some of those sorts of sentiments. And I get that people have those sentiments, fine, but here's the deal: you don't. Number one, you don't get to write for supposedly. You're not supposed to be part of the woke media and have those sentiments. Just saying. I mean,
or
if this guy had been writing for Fox News, it would have been the soon as his byline hit Fox News, CNN would have called him out.
yeah,
It
yeah,
would have been
absolutely.
all over every major news outlet. That a Hitler lover is working for Fox News.
You know, or maybe this is their agenda, Craig. This is CNN's agenda. We know where they stand on Israel-Palestinian territories. We know they're against Israel. We know they're against Benjamin Netanyahu. Um, Maybe this is their thing. Maybe this is their agenda that they do want to see Jerusalem, the Israeli side of Jerusalem, destroyed and it become a Palestinian territory.
It wouldn't surprise me. Wouldn't surprise me one bit. It's just now. It's kind of funny because now it's just kind of out there, out in front. Not that it wasn't, but I think it's for people who deny that. Well, they're just going to have to wake up. But hey, you know what? I guess he's just exercising his First Amendment rights, which, interestingly enough, not everyone who's here or resident in these United States gets. Take Prince Henry, for example. Recently, in an interview or in a commentary, he basically talked about how he wants to kind of exercise his First Amendment rights, but he doesn't really get it, and it gets really kind of, as he referred to it, bonkers. So my question is, well, if he believes the First Amendment is bonkers, one has to wonder, what does he think about the Second Amendment?
Well, I listen. He's just starting to get ready and go down the list now, so I'm sure he's going to have problems and issues with everything. Actually, got to meet him one time. Actually, got to meet him one time, so it's always cool, kind of following the little stories around him. Um, everything that I know about him from ahead of time was obviously, well, he's the Duke of Sussex and the Prince, Prince of England there. But uh, all his stories kind of start around when he hooked up with that American chick. What's her name? Meghan Markle. And, he seemed to be a pretty straightforward dude there. And as soon as that happened, mm, you know, Craig, we all got that one friend who
Well,
gets with that one girl, and he's just not the
well,
same after.
you know what? And I will say this, and this is one thing, and I'll go back to Colin Kaepernick. Colin Kaepernick was not a controversial guy until he met that one woman, that his girlfriend who he started dating,
Yep,
who took him to Wokeville,
yep.
and his that's when his NFL career started to tank.
Yeah.
He started playing really, really bad, and then his attitude got as bad as his playing, and now dude's unemployed. So sometimes, honestly, a good woman will elevate you, and the wrong woman can definitely tear you down. And I'm starting to wonder if that's the case. But here's the other thing, and I thought about it kind of a different way, and not so much. Here's what I thought. Now, hear me out. I'm wondering if he's thinking, well, okay, so if I have a right to say whatever it is that I think is, whatever I think, if I have a right to my freedom of speech, why are all these people getting canceled for saying, not just saying what they think, but saying things that are pretty much true? Doesn't that make the First Amendment kind of confusing? Not so much the First Amendment itself, but in terms of how the woke left, or the woke media, or the woke police have chosen to implement the First Amendment.
Yeah, but they do. The First Amendment was meant to guarantee your ability to speak out against the government, so you could speak out without having to have fear of being put down. With a tyrannical government. So that's the first method that you got to speak against tyranny. Was through the First Amendment. They wanted to guarantee that. Obviously, that's gone through many, many, many different layers of interpretation through the Supreme Court over the years, to the point where now with this wokeness, and no real wokeness has gone before the Supreme Court under a First Amendment case. So we'll see. I mean, if you put things out there that are clearly treasonous or full of sedition, maybe that's something that will be examined by the Supreme Court. But for right now, people are going to, take it against the wall and trample it down and step over it. That's where they are with the First Amendment. They're always going to cry, I can say whatever I want, however hateful it is, because it's my First Amendment right to do so.
But it's not just the right to speak out against the government, but it's literally completely the government's inability. The government's not supposed to be able to not allow you to speak. And so when you start looking at things like a lot of this, whether it's critical race theory that's being taught in schools or being taught to government employees, certain things where the government is coming after people, calling speech offensive, and shutting down speech, or allowing speech to be shut down. All of these are all things that can make it really confusing when you say you have a freedom of speech, but yet, you have a national platform that has shut the former president of the United States out, that said, nope, you don't get, for absolutely no reason, we're going to break all of our rules and make it so that you don't have the ability to speak to your tens of millions of followers via Twitter. I mean, I can get where someone can look at it and say this is confusing, just like I get where they could be confused about the Second Amendment. I mean, think about this. It shouldn't be confusing, but then you have people on the left who say, it says, shall not be infringed, but yet you have half the country who believes that, well, I can infringe on it anytime I want. Yeah, I can see where that can be confusing.
Yeah, Second Amendment definitely will be one that he's going to have a hard time getting his mind wrapped around. That's for sure. But First Amendment, Craig, I agree with you. You listen to the Twitters, the Facebooks, everything out there. This is not a private organization that should be protected the way that our government has decided to protect it. These have become the town squares of our day. These are where the information is put out. And if you're putting out lies and hate, there should be a line in the sand that says you can't do that. Craig, if I started putting out there that, hey, this guy across the street from me is a child molester, and
Right.
he killed a kid, and that's lies, and something happens to him, I should be held liable for that, not be able to hide behind the First Amendment. And that's where that line is. It's sketchy. Where's that line? Where's the left side? Where's the right side of truthful speech and hate speech?
Well, but we've gotten to the point with social media in particular where, I mean, literally you have, whether it was the Hunter Biden story,
Right.
where they literally just flat out cut out anybody who put anything out about it. If anybody puts out anything regarding the CDC changing their position on masks, right? Anything that was anti-mask, or anybody who criticized or questioned vaccinations, any of that all is getting shut down. So it's like they are becoming the arbiters of truth. And anyway, I get where he says it can be confusing. I'm wondering once again if that's it, or if he's just wondering why do we allow people to be able to speak their minds? We are a monarch. Off with his head. I don't know which confusing he meant.
We'll find out more because evidently he's all the news that the mainstream media can muster these days.
Exactly, because we just have this fascination with whatever it is that celebrities have to say.
Right.
But folks, hey, one of the things that's actually become kind of interesting is, once again, in the era of wokeness, now we have government seeking to communicate to us about what we should think and what we should feel, and really speaking out of some real craziness when it comes to, in particular, to issues of race. And one of those issues has to do with maternity. Now, there have been studies, and there are studies that are out there that demonstrate that based on ethnicity, there are disproportionate outcomes when it comes to maternity, right? That black women tend to have more complications, tend to have more premature children than do other groups, right? In particular, than do whites. But what's interesting about it is that instead of taking a look at it and saying, well, what did the role of prenatal care have to do with it? Whether or not they got prenatal care or diets or anything like that. Instead, in San Diego, the government in San Diego County, decided that we're going to blame it all on racism and discrimination. Because 60%, because black babies are nearly 60% more likely to be premature, it must be due to discrimination. I mean, it has to be, right? I mean, stuff doesn't happen. You don't get disproportionate stuff like this happen unless they're being discriminated against, right?
Hold on, let me make sure I got this right. Now I'm discriminating against an unborn child that I can't see.
Pretty much, yeah. That's pretty much what they're saying.
Oh, all right, okay. Listen, and in today's world, if I see the woman and she happens to be a black woman, and now I guess I'm just going to make the assumption that the father's black as well. I mean, I don't understand how from afar I am now discriminating against the child. Craig, the first things I thought about when I read this story was the same as you just mentioned. Was what's the prenatal care? What's the diet of the woman? Does she know she's pregnant? We're talking about one woman that didn't know she was pregnant that we read about in the news, or is this a systemic racist problem that is widespread amongst every black woman having a child?
Well, here's the thing, and this is when you start looking at these studies, there's different things you have to look at, and there's the problem that I have with a lot of this stuff is that when you're studying these things, there's things that are causal and things that are correlative, right? So you have causative means A and B, A causes B. So A happens and therefore A is causing B, right? So this person is of this ethnicity, and because they are of this ethnicity, their baby is more likely to be premature. Or they're being black because of things we do to black people, because we discriminate against black people, their baby is going to be premature. But then there's also things that are correlative, right? Meaning they're going the same direction, but A does not necessarily cause B. It's an indicator in that these things happen to happen around the same time. And the reason why that's important is because you want to take a look at, so what are the actual causal factors, right? How about the fact that 70% of black babies are generally born to a single mother? How about that? How about that probably means that it's more likely that baby is going to wind up being born into poverty. How do we know that? Because guess what? Two people have a greater likelihood of having a greater income than one, which means access to health care might be an issue, right? Because they're low income, not because they're black, right? But we don't want to look at that. Right? We don't want to look at what the causal factors are and address the causal factors. We just want to say it's systemic racism. Now, last I checked, maybe it's just me, but last I checked, I don't know how you have institutional racism against black babies. Oh, no, actually, I do. Because you know what I also know? I also know that while black women make up only 13% or 10 to 13% of the population, they make up over 35% of all abortions. In fact, 80% of abortion clinics are put in communities that are predominantly people of color, uh, black people in particular. I do know that Margaret Sanger was a eugenicist, the founder of Planned Parenthood. And
Yeah.
she was very much an advocate for making sure that undesirable people, which included black people, were discouraged from breeding. So if we want to talk about, you know, discrimination, maybe we should take a look at that.
Yeah, you're absolutely right, Craig. There on that point, and I'd jump back to like we talked about earlier this week, last week, whatever it was, and you started to touch on it there. That this is more of a social economical issue. Listen, it's easy to point the finger at racism because it's quantifiable. I can put my hands on it, right, and say that there's a line between black and white. But when I turn that line sideways and go, it's the difference between $10,000 a year income and $50,000 income. That's harder to track, and that's more general. I could be discriminating against the poor, and there's no real word for that. And beside the way, it's not sexy right now either. If I hate Asians, I'm going to get my own month to do that for Black American awareness. But are we still there? We're all good. Do we have had a little earthquake? Everything
We had a little bit of a hiccup. Just go ahead and start, and I'll fix it.
okay? All right, we're good. And so hold on. Let's see. I just had a little flicker again. Okay, I could. Okay, I'm back. All right, good. Sorry, folks. I just had to go get me a smoothie. I was gone for a minute. So yeah, I think this is more social economic. I think this is easier to define as when you say racism, because when I say racism, I could say black, I could say white, I could say Asian, whatever it happens to be. But this, I think, occurs across the lines of
Yeah.
dollars, of finance, where this issue is really become a problem. And that doesn't matter to me what race it is. I've worked every area of this country. I don't care what you are, what your background is. I can go find you a slum neighborhood full of whites, blacks, Asians, Hispanics, American Indians, whatever it
Right.
is, and they all live the same way. It doesn't matter what their race is.
Right, and the thing that's, like I said, is crazy here is that when you point to discrimination, it to me, first of all, it's a cheater's way out.
Yeah.
It's like saying, yeah, no, it's completely, yeah, we don't have to address the real problem because all we have to do is say it's racism. And when the problem doesn't get better, it's still racism. If the problem does get better, well, if the issue does get addressed somehow, some way, then we say, well, look, we fixed racism. And
Right.
you do that without ever really dealing with the underlying problem. And that, my friends, is a no go. When we talk, oh, by the way, talking about underlying problems, I've said this before and I will say it again. There is Black Lives Matter, lowercase, which is the kind of the phrase that, I think that, and I'll say this over and over again. Black lives matter because all lives matter, period. So if all lives matter, then black lives matter. So, okay, I get that. So I think most people are okay with the statement. But then there's Black Lives Matter, the organization, the 501c3, that is seeking to fundamentally tear down our society as it exists through policy, through politics, through rhetoric, through media. And they're seeking to do this. And once again, this organization founded by trained Marxists, not me. That's not my words. It's their words. Now the problem is that Patrisse Cullors, one of the founders of Black Lives Matter, one of the co-founders, well, she's not a very good Marxist because she is now clearly they're providing more and more evidence that, number one, not only is she enriching herself and buying millions of dollars worth of property, but she's also now apparently on the hook for self-dealing. Now, for those of you who don't know what self-dealing is, it's when you run an organization or a government, whatever it is, and money comes in and then you utilize that money to enrich yourself, meaning you sign a contract with yourself, your for-profit business self, in order to do the work of this nonprofit organization, and you basically you make cash off of the millions of dollars in contributions that have come from woke corporate America. That's what she's accused of doing.
Just self-dealing. Hey, is there another word for embezzling that doesn't sound so bad? For fraud, for kickbacks. What could we call it? Well, let's call it self-dealing. It sounds so
Self-dealing.
much healthier. It sounds so much nicer.
It
Let's self
does, doesn't
heal.
it?
Let's
It
self
does.
heal. What a
She
crock.
sounds like a pretty darn good capitalist for someone who's a Marxist.
Well, listen, she wants to make sure some others get the money, but she first, Craig, if she's not living in that $3-4 million house that she just bought, or that $500,000 worth of property they just bought over there in Georgia, if she can't live comfortably, how could she make sure everybody else gets their share in equitable distributions?
Well, exactly. See, but that's, folks, let me explain something to you about Marxism and about socialism. See, in communism, it's not about everybody being equal. It's about most people being equal, and it's about taking people who are earning more and making sure they are as broke as the people who aren't earning anything, unless you are part of the favored class. Well, then you pretty much get to do whatever the heck it is that you want to do. That's what Marxism is.
Yeah, listen, the Politburo didn't live in the slums. They didn't live in the middle class apartments. Guess where they lived, folks? They made sure they were living in high on the hog, and pooping in gold sheets and everything else. And then with the trick, they let it trickle down a little bit to the other classes. It's
Oh
not
yeah.
about equal. It's about more for us, some for you, and less for even more.
Well, you know what? You know what's interesting, and this is an aside before we move on to the next. Is the term trickle down economics was never a Republican thing. It's never
Correct.
that was always something that the left wing media put out
Yep.
there about capitalism. That it's about trickle down, which demonstrates a fundamental misunderstanding of economics. But okay,
Right.
it sounded good. And
Yeah.
it's just funny that keeps getting heaped on Republicans nowadays, or on people who support the idea of capitalism. But yeah, no, this lady clearly is taking from the rich and giving to herself.
She's self-dealing, Greg. It's again, it's not embezzlement. It's self-dealing.
Self dealing. Right. Okay. I like that spin. I like that spin. Talking about spinning, we know that the CDC has jumped back and forth through all sorts of mental and verbal machinations over the last year, trying to come up with and trying to put forth language that will move people to do whatever the heck it is they want people to do. Because in the end, the CDC is not, this is the Centers for Disease Control. It's not about studying diseases or causes of death or anything like that. And by the way, it's not about controlling diseases or causes of death. It's about controlling people, right? They're a center. They talk about diseases, but in the end, they want to control you and I. And I think nothing can be clearer than the positions, the myriad of different positions they've taken on masks, especially recently. A lot of which is consistent with the science, and a lot of which is not consistent with the science, because they jump all around. The science, folks, hasn't changed the entire time, but their position on masks has. And interestingly enough, someone brought up a very interesting question. Well, if we can't trust the CDC because we know they're going to lie to us on masks, well, why should they be trusted to be able to communicate and control people when it comes to firearms?
Well, they shouldn't, Craig. That's the short answer. We know that they're not about science; they're about political science, uh, and that's how it's been. We've known from day one with this mass things. It was about control. It was about fear. It wasn't about health. It was about changing a national agenda. It was about driving a coordinated effort to drive people to social media, to keep them in their homes, to poison their brains against the last president, so they could try and trick you into getting the new president home. By the way, they did. They certainly did. And we know that everything they've ever put out on the Second Amendment is also been politically based. The whole, it's a national emergency. It's a healthcare issue. They're going to try and angle, the anti-gun crowd are going to try and angle it any way they can. And the CDC is just another one of their tools to get you to believe what they want you to believe about firearms.
Right, because they have an official sounding acronym. We know that for example, they keep talking about the Dickey Amendment made it so that they couldn't study firearms. No, what the Dickey Amendment did was it says that you can't advocate for gun control. And
Correct.
the problem is the reason why they stopped studying firearms and the use of firearms was because if they couldn't advocate for gun control, they really weren't interested in doing any studying. And
Well,
that's
and
what it
remember,
comes
they
down
did
to.
study, Craig, and it took 10 years for it to come out. They did their studies during the
Yes.
control years, gun control years, and it turns out the study said gun control doesn't work. You know what?
And because
So
they
that's
couldn't
understandable.
because they
We're
couldn't
responsible.
advocate, yeah, because they couldn't advocate,
Yeah, yeah,
they didn't tell anybody.
yeah, exactly right. Sat in that story for almost 12 years. Exactly right. Yeah.
Exactly. But once again, and it goes back to our party. Then it also kind of expands out to our parting shot, where we talk about what's going on with COVID and how COVID-19 has been handled. And folks, it hasn't been handled like a disease; it's been handled like a political issue, which is why this parting shot is so appropriate. Yeah, no, it has nothing to do. Doctors have no say in what happens with COVID-19. It's all about what the politicians have to say.
Yep, exactly right. It's all about the politicians. It's everything that they want to tell you, everything they want you to know. We've said this day one. It's about control. It's about fear. It's not about health. It's about controlling you and getting you to do what they want you to do. They being the politicians and the government.
Yep, that's all they really want. They want to control us. And folks, understand that COVID-19 has given them the roadmap as to how to do it, right? They
Yep.
tried it with guns and they really didn't take, but with COVID-19, it did. The next thing we're going to be watching out for, I'm telling you, watch out for it, climate change. They've
Climate
already
change.
established that there's the science is irrefutable, even though it's totally refutable. It's undeniable, even though Obama's, the guy who gave him all the data and the guy who headed his effort has already said, yeah, it's totally deniable and totally false. But trust me, watch it. Keep your eyes on it. Guns and climate change are going to be the next public health crises that they're going to use to take away our fundamental rights.
Craig, I'm still waiting for the ice age, the next ice age they promised us back in the 70s. Everybody seems to forget about that, right?
I know, because you know what? Ice goes well with bourbon.
Oh. Oh. Speaking of which, it's 5 o'clock somewhere.
All right, folks. Hey, that's going to be it for this edition of The Rundown. Tune in tomorrow. Tune in tomorrow for Freedback. Freedback Friday. Freedback Friday. Tune in. Tell your friends to tune in. Let's have a nice big crowd on there, and let's have some good combo.
Yeah, man, we're gonna get you some freebies from Grid Defense and from Gorilla Machining. So stick around tomorrow at noon Eastern time, and whatever happens to be anywhere else in the world, you can join us there at the same time. And we got some goodies for you. We're gonna have a great program, great time. So like, share, subscribe. Like, share, subscribe.
Excellent. Talk to y'all later. Have fun. See you tomorrow.